know what it is us 21st century humans value, crave, and worship above all else? The thing we seek out, minute by minute, 24/7, 365 days a year? Well, an idealist might say the answer is love, or maybe happiness. A cynic might say money or power. But I'll tell you what I think. After watching my fellow bipeds shamble around this spinning rock low these many years, I say the deepest human impulse, the most profound desire and need, is for communication. But right now, at this moment, communication is changing. In the old days, the way our culture talked to itself, all the stuff we read and watched and listened to, was controlled by the bigwigs who ran newspapers and TV networks, the movie bosses and music moguls. The big shots decided not just what information you could have, but when and where you could have it, and how much you had to pay for it, too. I'm John Heilman, and I'm here to tell you about a communications uprising that's happening all around us. An incendiary revolt of the little guy that has the assembled forces of big media quaking in their tasseled loafers. A revolt being propelled by, what else? The World Wide Web. To bring you this tale, I've explored the infinite expanses of the internet, from its busiest quadrants to its most barren haunts. I've skulked around behind the scenes in Silicon Valley, delving into the doings and meetings of the leaders of a new generation of companies like YouTube, MySpace, and Facebook. Companies that have begun to turn the web into a two-way, participatory, democratic medium, controlled by no one and shaped by everyone. In other words, our medium. I've also delved into the history of the web to tell you the story of how the seeds of this remarkable transformation were sown. By now, we all know how the web has changed the world. But this is the story of how the world is changing the web. This is Silicon Valley, California, and these dudes are Chad Hurley, Kevin Rose, and Jay Adelson. Now, they may look more like Doogie Howser than Che Guevara, but these guys are among the leaders of the Web 2.0 revolution. Rose and Adelson run Dig, a social news website, the content of which is chosen by its devoted user community of millions. Hurley, meanwhile, is the co-founder of one of the planet's most insanely popular websites, YouTube, the online video sharing service that was bought by Google in 2006 for a jaw-dropping $1.65 billion. Now, you might think that like other startup players, these guys are in it to get rich. And yeah, they are. But they're also on a mission to change the world through web-enabled people power.
I think it's just, this is what the internet's all about. The internet's about connecting individuals, or connecting individuals to information.
Who do you trust more? Do you trust some corporate executive in some smoky-filled back room, or do you trust your peers and the people who are connected to you?
If that sounds like fighting talk, that's because it is. Dig and YouTube are part of a new wave of web services, each more popular than the last, all of which offer an alternative to old-school media, like the one you're watching right now. Until very recently, the old television order operated according to a set of ancient and antiquated customs. Incredibly charismatic and slightly obnoxious, guys like me would travel around the world with huge expense accounts and even bigger salaries, getting ourselves filmed by guys like these. For the average person, the TV industry was impossible to get into. It was a clubby system that decided on its own what would get on the air. Them two, in other words. But not anymore. Today, the TV industry is being blown wide open, made accessible to everyone, all because of YouTube and a transformation summed up by its two-word slogan, broadcast yourself.
Before, it was just the traditional media companies that would control the gates of distribution. And also, they were controlling what was being produced. But we think everyone has an opportunity, or should have the ability to be heard.
It's not surprising that some of the titans of television find YouTube so threatening, especially after its marriage to Google. For what Chad Hurley and his gang have done is given us all a power that used to reside only in the hands of the masters of big media. They've given each and every one of us our own personal broadcast tower from which we can transmit our home video creations, be they brilliant or utterly moronic, to a potential audience of millions. Over at Dig, a similar kind of experiment is underway. Only here the subject isn't frivolous TV entertainment, but that most self-serious of subjects, news. Like a newspaper, Dig is full of the latest goings-on from around the world. But what lands on Dig's front page isn't decided by some stripy-shirted, ink-stained Ben Bradley wannabe. It's decided by you, the user. The more people who dig, which is to say vote for, a given story, the more prominence it gets on the site.
You know, it's always been a handful of editors that determine what belongs on the front page of a newspaper or anywhere else. Now it's the entire, close to 1 million registered editors that we have that are constantly looking for great news, information, stories, videos, and anything else to expose to the community.
What Dig is doing is it's saying a blog could be on the same plane as the New York Times. And it's up to the people to decide what's important.
The guys at both YouTube and Dig are believers in a theory known as the wisdom of crowds. They're also deeply in touch with the fact that we love nothing more than the sound of our own voices, the sight of our own images on a screen. But there may be nobody who understands all that more deeply at this moment than this kid, Mark Zuckerberg, the 22-year-old founder of the burgeoning social networking site, Facebook.
The reason why you spend so much time communicating with your friends, right, and other people that you respect is because their opinions and what they say actually means a lot to you. So what we've tried to do at Facebook is we've tried to map out all of these relationships that people have.
About a year ago, I happened to share a cross-country flight with Arthur Sulzberger, the chairman and publisher of the New York Times, and Mark Zuckerberg. Zuckerberg arrived about 20 minutes late to the New York Times jet, no less, wearing a pair of gym shorts and flip-flops. Listening to him and Sulzberger talk about the future of media was like overhearing a conversation between a Martian and a fungo bat. When the flight was over, Sulzberger asked me what I thought of Zuckerberg, and I said I thought he was smart but young. Sulzberger replied, yeah, smart, but really young, and really, really lucky. He said he was just the flavor of the month. A year later, the New York Times' share price and profits were falling through the floor, and the company was conceding that its web strategy was a total mess. Meanwhile, Facebook was growing like gangbusters, getting ready for what was sure to be a multi-billion-dollar IPO, and looking, quite possibly, like the next Google.
Well, it's always been pretty surprising, right? I mean, even just the fact that it continues growing at, more than 3% each week, by the time you get up to a rate where you're growing at more than 200,000 users a day, it's just like, wow, is this going to last, right? Is this going to keep on growing? But it does, just consistently.
Facebook is a bona fide phenomenon, just like its social networking rival MySpace, and just like YouTube. One day, you've never heard of them, and the next they're everywhere. In our homes, at our offices, on our kids' laptops, and let's be honest, on our own too. But the truth is, Facebook and YouTube and MySpace and Dig didn't come out of nowhere. They're the direct descendants of another crop of media revolutionaries who hit the scene an eternity ago in high-tech terms, by which I mean, a little less than a decade ago. These guys were first and foremost die-hard music fans, but they also happened to be raging techno geeks, and that made all the difference. The assault they would launch on the status quo in the music industry would lay the foundations on which the likes of YouTube and Facebook would be built. And they'd wage that battle using nothing but cojones and a stream of computer code. When the web first